I'm working on the footstool that I was working on yesterday. Put that down so you can see it. And yesterday I had noticed that two sides were a little bit on the short side. So I'm adding one row across the bottom of those two sides. And thank goodness I marked them. And this is something that I intended to do yesterday afternoon off camera, and I didn't get around to it. So I'm doing it now. I've got one side done. This is the second side. So as soon as I get through hooking this row across here, then we will start with the process of sewing up the side seams, which is where the real lesson is, I think. I am hooking this off the frame for a couple reasons. I'm too lazy to get up and walk over to the frame and to move my big giant rug off of that frame. I'm also too lazy to move the cameras. I forgot to turn that one on. Button. Shoot. That's all I need is to fall on camera. That would be ugly, wouldn't it? There we go. Now that's recording. And I'm just extending the bottom of this to make it longer. Like I said, losing my train of thought. We got some viewers today. Thank you for stopping by. Not as many as yesterday, so hopefully maybe the numbers will pick up, and I probably discouraged quite a few people in the beginning when they got on and it was all garbled up. So for those of you who persevered and hung in there, thank you. I appreciate it. There is a chat wing on the sidebar if you're watching it on rugcamp.com/live. Let me know you're there. Just say hey. I won't check it constantly because my head is down and I am cooking, but I will look up occasionally and see what's what. As I mentioned yesterday, this is a footstool that when she bought the footstool pattern and I color planned it for her, I told her I would finish it for her too. So that's what this process is all about. And it works out good because I could use it for this process. I had trouble with the other videos that I shot when I finished a footstool a couple years ago and intended to put those videos up, and they just did not work. So this will give you a little bit of an idea. The downside is that this pattern is a pattern that's no longer available. Liz bought this from Kim Nixon sometime before her death and kind of sat on it for a while and then started hooking it. And she only hooks on it when we're at group, which is 2 times a week. The first and third Thursdays at the Mommy and Sylvania Senior Center, respectively. Liz was the very first person I met in rug hooking. So she had a pretty big impact on my hooking career. She's also the person who got me my first teaching job. I'll never forget that. She walked into the meeting and she basically had a piece of paper with a phone number on it. And she goes, "Here you go. That's Sandy's phone number. She's expecting you to call. She needs a rug hooking teacher." Well, I certainly wasn't ready or didn't think I was ready for teaching rug hooking. My goodness, I had just started. I do have an art background, so as far as color goes, I didn't have to learn a whole lot there. I had that, but as far as the actual technique goes, all I had to do was stay ahead of the beginners I was getting, because at the time, there didn't appear to be any rug hooking, experienced rug hookers. And I taught there for quite some time. But what I didn't like is it was a kit class. You signed up for the class and bought the kit, which was great for the proprietor. They were selling kits like crazy. But I did not enjoy teaching that way. I wanted to teach a more open format. And I found another shop about an hour away who was also looking for a rug hooking teacher. She allowed me to teach the way I would bring what you have, and we work with that rather than forcing the student to buy a kit. It was an hour away. I didn't think there'd be a conflict, but I did tell the prior person that I was teaching with, and she did not look on that favorably, even though it was an hour away from my home. So it was probably almost an hour and a half away from the other shop. She said that she did not share well, and that if I taught there, I couldn't teach at her shop. And I said, "Okay, I understand." And I didn't teach at her shop. I wanted to teach the open format. I guess I'm bored by, a set project and everybody's hooking the same colors. There's no excitement there. There's nothing for the student to discover on their own or anything along that line. So it's not as much fun from a teacher point of view, because you're not helping the student discover what's inside of them. They're just fulfilling a plan that someone else had laid out. Okay, that's good for now. We've got that all taken care of. Okay, what do I do with my scissors? I'm going to cut these couple little tails here so that I don't forget. It makes the top look a little bit nicer. I did leave on this side, I left a long string, and we'll talk about that later. I'm not going to need that much. I'm going to cut it off just to make it a little bit more manageable. And I did the same thing on this one, although do I have that same color? I will put that same color. That might have to get adjusted. We'll see. Okay. Okay, now we get to what we were all here for, which is sewing the side seam. And I've got some needles threaded, simply because sometimes it takes me a while to thread a needle because I can't see. So I thread it by feel, and I didn't want to have to do that on camera. So let's pick a corner, any corner. Let's grab this one because it's here. And the way it's going to be, this particular pattern is a little tricky in that you're matching parts. Not all footstools are designed in that way. So there's a little bit of stuff over here that Liz did not hook, and I told her, let it be. I'll figure that out what it should be once I smush it together. So what you typically do is usually fold it back right at the loops, but because a lot of this isn't hooked, see if you can see that. See, a lot of that's not hooked, but I'm just going to ignore that for now and kind of pretend that it has been hooked. Let's actually, for this purpose, let's grab another side. This one's better. This one's pretty simple. It's just the tree going in. So you fold the backing back on both halves. I generally match the bottom by sort of pinching and making sure that my fingers are kind of in the same place. I'm going to put a pin in there just to hold it for now. It's all kind of evened up and out of the way. And it's going to be folded back sort of like this. And then the other side gets folded back sort of like that. And so I'm not trying to make these loops touch these loops. There's no attempt whatsoever to do that. And I'm simply going to stitch up that side, and I'm going to stitch it up loosely. The reason for going loose is that if it's all said and done and I get to the fourth seam and it's not quite right, if I have to take it out, I would rather take out something that's been stitched rather loosely. So what I'm going to do here is put a couple of stitches in this part. Just to tighten that so that it doesn't pull out. And then I'm going to do a couple just real simple, nothing fancy kind of a stitch. I'm using black thread. Doesn't really matter what color you use because it doesn't show. But I'm using black so it shows up for you. And it happened to be what was at the top of my sewing drawer. So it worked out good. The thread that I'm using, I really don't know for sure exactly what this is. It's something old. It came in this cute little box, like from a store. And there was, I think, a dozen spools of this. And I bought it just because I thought the spools would be worth what I paid for it. And I bought that before I started rug cooking. So luckily, now I have a use for it. Get a couple more stitches in here, and then I'll show it to you on the camera so that you can see a little bit better what's going on. Okay, so there's the stitching. It's just enough to sort of hold it together without it doing anything too terribly fancy. Okay, and I am just going to finish this side. Now remember, I did fit this to the footstool before I cut off the edges. So I knew that it was roughly the right size. There's always the option I can take out a row. I can hook in an extra row if I need to make it a little bit bigger. And it should be a very, very tight fit. Should be almost difficult. Should almost feel a little small, especially lengthwise, because we're going to be pressing down on it really hard and pulling on it. Or actually, I'm not. The upholsterer will be, because I'm going to have an upholsterer do this for me once I have the side seams sewn. And hopefully I can find somebody who will won't be too shy and will let me film them doing it, so you can see what the upholsterer does, and you can always direct your upholsterer to that video. So it should make it nice for everybody. Now this little curved area is there to make, you don't want a point on a footstool that's hard like this. We want that to curve and to be a smoother edge. So the pattern has these curves drawn on it. And what I do is I just kind of smush it down, and it's almost like a dart. and it eventually sort of disappears. And I'm almost to the top. Put a couple little bites in right here just to secure the thread. And then we'll cut that off. Now, before I do every seam, I want to size this. It's a bit of a pain, but it saves you trouble in the long run, because if you don't size it every single time, you're going to be sizing it once again at the end because it's not going to fit. I can almost guarantee that. And if it does, then you got super, super lucky. So I pop that on there, kind of work that seam, get it on there square. And I'm just going to kind of pinch. Now I can do it easily with two hands. Pinch each seam to kind of see. I might be a little bit short over here. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come diagonally across, and I'm going to sew up this seam next. Push that out of the way. Pull those seam allowances in. Oh, I got a dog that has to go outside. Come on, Mick. Come on. Come on, old girl. Get out from under the table. There you go. Drop it back. Good girl. End. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing that I did with that one. I'm going to like pinch it really tight at the base, see if it looks like it lines up good, and it does. I'm going to go ahead and secure that little bit there. Before we move on, I'm going to change that camera angle. There we go. And then I just sew up the seam the same way I did the other one. This one's got, again, some stuff that's not hooked. So I'm going to kind of respect the edge of the pattern, the way it's drawn. So I'm leaving a little bit more than normal on that side. But because of the design, my guess is Kim designed this one, hooked it herself, and probably really never intended on selling the pattern, but then got asked for it, because this is not one that a first-time footstool person would really want to tackle, because we had to do some adjusting in the hooking process just to make sure the two sides lined up, because you've got things that wrap around the corners, which is a little bit of a trick. You know, it's doable, but maybe not your first go around. Check the comments to see if anybody's out there saying anything. Chat wing tends to kick out. I don't know. I'm gonna have to go see if there's a default on that. Looks like after 15 minutes, it just simply kicks you off and you have to hit that reconnect button, which I just did. And there's no questions for right now. So I'm just going to continue on with what I'm doing. Now I hope you're hooking along with me. That's what this is designed for. If you cannot make it every day at 10, the recording of the previous hook in will be on the page where you're seeing this, which is rugcamp.com/live. And that'll stay there until I set up the hook in for the next day. And then you'll see a countdown timer and you know when the next one is. I usually set that up in the morning, roughly an hour, half hour before 10 o'clock. As I get more familiar with it, it'll be later and later. But right now I'm worried about not being up and going at 10 o'clock. And this morning I ran into a glitch. So it's bound to happen. But there will be, in addition to the recording of this hook-in, just raw footage, I am editing it. I've got another camera that is filming. It just cut out. The battery died. There is a camera overhead that's catching some of these angles that it's really difficult for me to get this webcam to see them. I do have a new one coming. Should come this afternoon, according to Amazon, and Amazon's always right. So I'll be able to play with that this afternoon and get that set up for tomorrow. What's nice is that is not part of my computer. Right now I'm just using the camera that's on my MacBook Pro. Now I got a dog who wants back in. Okay, guys. Where's Mickey? Mickey. There you go. There you go. Okay. I'm back. Sorry about that. Mickey is 18 years old, so when she wants to go outside, she goes outside. Okay, where was I? I had the two sewn, so I need to fit that to the footstool again to see how well it actually. I'm going to switch out the battery on the camera, so bear with me for a minute while I adjust that. If I had known how short the battery life was on this camera, I would have looked into something else. But luckily, I have spare batteries. It's just a matter of and putting it in the right way helps. Let's screw this back on. Okay. So I got this side and this side sewn up, and now I'm going to fit it on the footstool. Pull it down tight. What usually happens is during the upholstery process, they need to put a little bit of foam in these corners just to kind of fill them up. I think this one might have been hooked in such a way that it didn't get the nice curve. I might end up taking that out at the end, but for now. You can see that it's a little on the short side. You know, here's the end of the footstool and here's this. But when this gets pulled on really tight, you want the hooking to end right at the base of the wood. And sometimes they get on a little bit crooked, like for right now. I'm gonna push this way a little bit. And now I can really see how these seam allowances are going to hold up. That works out pretty good. I will take out a couple of those stitches and bring that back up a little bit higher so that curve is a little bit more pronounced. And I need to make sure that I leave enough and take out that little bit, I think. Okay. A lot of making a footstool is trial and error. The good news is it actually is faster than hooking or whipping a rug of this size. So that makes it nice. Where was I going to take off? I'm going to take off this little, take off that little row of hooking. If I can get into those loops. Okay, those are short loops. There we go. And then back, and then decide how far up I want to go. Okay, why is the camera making noises at me? Might have just lost the ability to film. When in doubt, turn it off, right? Well, there's obviously something it doesn't like that was just fine before. I've never seen it do this. Okay, turn it off. We lost the ability to film overhead. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going on the side seam. And where are we on time? 10:52. I'm going to go ahead and end it there. See if I can figure out what's going on with the camera and maybe film the rest of it off air, and it'll be in the edited version of the video once it's put together. So thank you to those of you who are still with me. I appreciate it. And I will do this again tomorrow at 10 a.m. So I'll see you then. Bye for now.